Big news today. Tesla/Elon announces that they've purchased $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. So that's what we're covering today for the show. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. If you enjoy the show, please take time to like and subscribe. And if you'd like some help in your trading and investing of Tesla and others, please join us. I think you'll find it useful to have daily support on trading ideas and investing ideas, especially focused on Tesla. So the big news that we should get to is that there's a filing that occurred that indicated that Elon/Tesla has now purchased $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. Now, it's sort of interesting to watch what this has done. I mean, the other news that was included with that filing was that the company will now start accepting payment for their products in Bitcoin. So I'm kind of surprised. I guess the first item that comes up is that Tesla's based on our forecast of at least 1% of the customers this year buying in Bitcoin and possibly as high as 5%. I think we're going to end up with Tesla owning a whole bunch of Bitcoin over the near and long-term future. And it's not clear that there are enough suppliers, et cetera, that are Bitcoin ready to have them sell or use those Bitcoins to purchase large amounts of material, but it's entirely possible, especially if you have a very large customer that you're dealing with. Why did this happen? Well, you may recall that there's a company called Microstrategy. And so Microstrategy stock price is up $100 pre-market today after Tesla made this move. The CEO of Microstrategy had a conference for a couple of days last week to encourage other companies to consider transitioning their cash into Bitcoin, which he did. According to Kathy Wood, one of our favorite investing company managers, there's a big move by a large number of companies into Bitcoin, and therefore it's sort of not unexpected that this would occur. The Microstrategy CEO not only moved all the company's cash into Bitcoin, but they had another offering and put all that money into Bitcoin as well. And so this, according to Kathy Wood, calls into question if MicroStrategy is actually a company or an ETF. So if you're really interested in that area, that's something you might want to consider. Obviously, the MicroStrategy CEO was effective. I was intrigued by the dialogue that went on between Elon and MicroStrategy CEO on Twitter, where Elon, again, I think it was about a month ago, asked him, that there's about $3 billion that Tesla had, possibly that could move off the balance sheet and go into Bitcoin. And Elon asked the question, can you buy $3.5 billion worth of Bitcoin? And so they subsequently had a meeting, and the result of that meeting is a move just made by Tesla. The next question is, will Tesla buy more going forward? And the answer we're coming up with is, even if Tesla does not buy more going forward, the fact that you have all those customers paying for their cars in Bitcoin will cause the amount of Bitcoin owned by Tesla to actually continue to rise dramatically. So how much do we think it's going to happen? At least 1% is the thought, but I think 5 to 10% of sales is a possibility around the world, because most of the buyers of Tesla cars are sort of tech savvy, future well-educated folks. So I think is going to happen more, and it'd be interesting to find if you would take time to note that, will you consider a purchase of your car in Bitcoin versus, regular cash or bank financing, etc. The next issue is, will Tesla begin paying its bills in Bitcoin? And the answer we're coming up with is the biggest creditor for Tesla is actually Panasonic relative to those batteries, and then subsequently the other battery manufacturers that Tesla is buying heavily from. Panasonic, as you know, is a huge, long-time Japanese firm and very, very conservative. So my answer to this is highly unlikely that this will happen, but I guess when I would have to say, if you're a supplier to Tesla and Tesla decides to pay you partially in Bitcoin, then the size of the dollar relationship with that customer will likely result in an effort to transition in this fashion. So there's a whole bunch of sort of ancillary things that are going on with this. Number one, PayPal did a big purchase of Bitcoin and started selling it, and their stock price has benefited this morning. Obviously, Microstrategy is at $9.12, up $120 this morning. And surprisingly, there are a number of other sort of ways in which this is sort of happening. There are some insurance companies experimenting with it. According to ARK Capital in their Yahoo presentation, there's a number of large entities around the world that have now begun testing out or investing in Bitcoin. So I guess the answer I would have is, hey, another one to look at is Dogecoin, because it was actually stated that there's a large number of celebrities, etc., encouraged by Elon's tweet, that have now moved into Dogecoin as well. So we'll keep you posted on this. Stay tuned. I'm a bit shocked at what I'm hearing and seeing. My take on Bitcoin is when you invest, it's often nice to have metrics you can use to anticipate what your investment might do. In the case of Bitcoin, as you know, it's been on a wild ride over the last 2 or 3 years to some very, very high numbers, then back down, then back up again. So, it's an interesting thing that's going on to sort of watch this go. Some of my friends in our trading group have been doing all the reading and research, and there's a discussion of Bitcoin being $300,000 a Bitcoin in the next couple of 3 years. The answer I have to that is I'm not interested myself, but I think that there's a lot of movement in terms of the increased institutional interest, entities like Tesla and others moving into it. And if you get Apple or any of the other big guys to come in, I do think that it's going to spike the value of this simply from supply and demand. I have to say that for my taste, I'm not interested in Bitcoin at all, for a number of reasons. Number one, there's been a lot of hacking going on where, Bitcoin has been stolen or exchanges have had issues, etc. Number two, liquidity. It's really nice when you work in options or stocks because the marketplace gives you an ability to move around quickly to manage your affairs efficiently. Number three, returns have been good across Tesla and other entities that we cover. So if those returns were very low or non-existent, it'd be more tempting to bounce over into Bitcoin for those reasons. I have to say that there's a number of folks who have been trying to push Bitcoin onto our show via the comment sections, and we've generally not supported that effort because we're a Tesla channel, and in many cases they're hyping up an individual manager relative to his knowledge of Bitcoin. And I think that it's an evolving space with the possibility of sort of data unknown affecting significantly those people that buy. So I do think it's nice to be able to ride with entities like a Square, which has done well with Bitcoin, as well as PayPal, because these are large, institutions that have somewhat of a hereditary component in terms of the government controlling what's going on. So I think there's a lower chance that you might have a disappearance of whatever you've purchased. So it's definitely worth considering. I, after hearing all this, went ahead and watched this show on Our Capital by Kathy Wood, and I have to say that she makes a compelling argument for adding Bitcoin in small amounts to your portfolio. I, for the reasons I just described, am not thrilled with it, but I would say that it's done well, and you have to give those guys credit for identifying and pubbing it and successfully moving the market towards more Bitcoin versus less. The next few days, as you know, we're going to get the 3-day rule on what Tesla's analysts think about this Bitcoin edition. I think it's going to make their work harder, because if you know the amount of cash allocated to Bitcoin and that number is increasing with customers buying it, right now it's not a big deal in terms of how it hits the balance sheet, but if that thing doubles or triples or something of that ilk, you may all of a sudden find that it's a line item that's significant on the balance sheet of Tesla and to be considered. So we'll keep you posted on what's going on here. I think it's interesting developments, and we'll make sure that we provide as much information as we can. And wow, I have to say I'm really surprised. But I had a talk yesterday with one of our top level Patreon supporters, and I explained to him that we've kind of entered the Elon boredom phase. Elon likes to have a number of challenging things on the table moving at the same time, and the more stable operations are and other people can handle it, he kind of gets bored and really wants to expand the portfolio of what he's looking at, and I think this really fits into that space. So we look forward to your comments on this. No, I don't want a whole bunch of people saying their advisor on Bitcoin is the best. You should talk to him. Now, I'm happy to encourage a healthy dialogue on what's going on and what's going on forward. Please remember to like and subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss anything. I'd also like to finish up with our health tips. Don't forget 25 leg lifts per leg per day. Also wanted to encourage you to make sure that you don't go to bed within 2 hours of eating, preferably 4, to allow the food to digest. Our upper respiratory doc informed us that this will prevent acid reflux and potentially cancer in your upper respiratory area. Also wanted to encourage you to limit fried foods to once a week, potentially helping avoid type 2 diabetes. Also wanted to encourage you to, if you're going to do lovemaking, make it a salad, very light. And the reason is it reduces the amount of blood flow needed to your stomach in order to digest that food. So therefore you now have it free for other activities to occur which require blood flow. And then, as you know, a 30 SPF or better is one of our recommendations made from our NIH researcher. And the final one was to encourage you to try to play an instrument or go dancing or something like that. It's kind of hard during COVID, but the instrument playing is pretty easy. I've been playing guitar for quite a while. It only takes 15 minutes to learn Ode to Joy, the first song. So I encourage you to consider that as well. At any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, German, au revoir, French. Lehitarot, Hebrew. Hoda, Hafez, Farsi, Zdravstvuyte, Russian, Ni hao ma, Chinese, Konbanwa, Japanese, Namaste, Hindi, Heido, Swedish, G'day, our friends in Australia, and in Jamaica we say, Nuff respect, walk Woodman. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day, and happy investing.
With that, and what's been interesting this time around is if you look at Google search trends for Bitcoin or Bitcoin's price against the Bitcoin price itself, you'll find that there's not a lot of speculative activity by that measure. In fact, in 2017, they were 1 for 1 together. but it has been pretty quiescent until maybe very recently, but throughout last year. And so that gave us a lot of comfort. We believe that the institutional behavior and moves recently have been fascinating. We have been expecting institutions to start moving into Bitcoin and other crypto assets, but primarily Bitcoin, the most secure of the blockchains, because if you look at the correlation of Bitcoin's performance relative to any other asset class, it has the lowest correlation, meaning if you buy some Bitcoin, you will further diversify your portfolio and increase your returns with lower risk.